Right, good morning or afternoon or evening, whenever this is. We're going to look at flow of carbon in an ecosystem. Okay, just some recap questions first. This is my favourite bean plant. This is a haricot bean plant. So these are pea pods, and as we know, beans contain. If I look at my tin of beans, they've got a good source of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. I'm trying to look at the camera more. So yeah, where does the chemical energy in these biomolecules originally come from? Well, they've transferred the energy from the... Brilliant, excellent. It's come from light, from sunlight. In the process that bean plants carried out to make carbohydrate, they carried out photosynthesis. This is why, in terms of being off school and remote learning, the good thing is that I'm really pointing out stuff to you, as I've said a few times now, that you know anyway, and we're applying it to ecosystems. Okay, so all of this is just a revision exercise, really, and seeing in what context to apply it. In what form does carbon enter the plant? This is the crucial bit of when we look at the flow of carbon molecules, we never say carbon on its own. It's always a carbon molecule. So carbon gets into the plant via the stomata as the gas carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide enters the plant, it's used in photosynthesis. Light energy is then used to basically rip water apart and ram on hydrogen from water onto carbon dioxide to form carbohydrates. And then the plants can use nitrates to make amino acids from the glucose, and then form them into proteins, and they can make glucose into fat as well. In a pyramid of biomass, where would this plant be found? Would it be found at the bottom, middle, or top? Well, it's a producer. They always go at the bottom, no matter what the mass of them or number of them, they always go at the bottom. Here's a cow. It's got a bit of grass in its nostril. It's obviously been grazing heavily and got a bit of grass there. A cat's just come in for the cat's lap, but hopefully he will stay down there. 5. Why is the cow warmer than its environment? Well, because the cow is carrying out the process of respiration, where heat is released as a byproduct. How do we know that cows don't get 100% of the energy in the grass that they eat? So cows eat grass, it goes through the digestive system, they absorb nutrients. How do I know that they aren't getting all of that energy? Well, at the other end of the cow, there'll be a big pile of cow poo, a cow pat, and that's food for other organisms. You can dry it, you can burn it. Yeah, so it obviously still contains energy. So yeah, it's the fact that the feces are produced and there's chemical potential energy in that feces, in those feces. 7. How does the cow lose a large amount of biomass every day? You can get lost in the detail here. Well, this is a dairy cow, therefore once or twice a day it'll go for milking, and therefore that's its biomass. It's taking, it's using its food to make the fats and sugars in its milk, and then we come along and take it. So yeah, it loses biomass every day, whereas a beef cattle, they lose their biomass on one very kind of like sad day after they've lived a life running around fields and things. Then they lose all their biomass. But let's not go into that. It's a bit upsetting. How could the cow be made to put on new biomass quicker? Well, more quickly would be a better way of saying it. Again, well, what could if it's using the sugar it's absorbed from its food in respiration, then it's really wasting it. Yeah, so I could just stop it from moving, not from mooing, from moving, and therefore less muscle contraction, and therefore more of the glucose would be stored as new biomass. And same goes for keeping it warmer as well. Yeah, it wouldn't have to shiver as much to stay warm, and therefore it'd be more efficient. And in what form does carbon enter the cow? Again, this is the crucial bit. Carbon dioxide goes into a plant, carbon dioxide is in the air. We breathe it in, but we don't use it. So the carbon enters the cow via all the things that were on the previous slide: carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Yeah, page Mr. Council stuff. Right. So how does the carbon flow? This is just a quiz to get us used to why we can't say carbon. So here, how does carbon in the air enter the plant. In what form does it go in? Well, it goes in as carbon dioxide and diffuses through open stomata. Carbon dioxide, 1 mark, diffuses 2 marks into the leaf via the stomata, potentially 3 marks. 3 marks. How is carbon flowing here? In what form? Well, this is graphite. Yeah, this is not biology. But if I say carbon moves, then this is what I'm saying. I'm either talking about graphite or other kind of carbon allotropes. Yeah, and we're in biology. Carbon never exists on its own. It's always as some molecule, some compound. How's it moving here? So the cow's eating grass. So grass is mainly a hard to digest carbohydrate. It's a polymer of glucose in big long chains. Paper's made out of it. Cell walls are made out of it. It's mainly moving as cellulose. How is carbon moving here? Whoops. Well, I've got 2 arrows. So we breathe out carbon dioxide. Well, we breathe out air that contains more carbon dioxide. So that's 1 arrow. But there's another arrow. Another carbon compound. We're more famous for it coming out of our rear end rather than our mouths. But due to the fancy stomachs that cows have, where they have loads of bacteria, they belch a lot of this gas. It's the gas that comes out of our Bunsen burner. So this is good old methane. So methane, CH4, can also be released, and that's part of the carbon cycle as well. Here it's ingesting some poo. Again, and there's carbon compounds in there. There'll be loads and loads of cellulose that's not fully digested. And here there's a flow of carbon onto a ring finger, they're getting engaged. Yeah, we don't talk about diamonds, we don't talk about graphite, we don't talk about, again, trying to think of other words, Buckminster fullerene, graphene. Yeah, they're all chemistry. They're not to do with biology. We are dealing with carbon compounds. And then here's some bacteria. Again, giving off the 2 arrows in aerobic conditions. They'll give off carbon dioxide. They'll do aerobic respiration. But some bacteria, the methogenic bacteria, they in anaerobic conditions will make methane. Again, these are the bacteria that are in the cow's stomach. They're pumping out methane, and it's a big ecological problem, as we'll get onto later in the topic. So, in your books, you need to kind of pause the video in a minute or go back to here because this is the key bits of notes that we need to get in our books. So we're going to learn the carbon cycle. Again, nothing's new really, it's just pointing out what you already know. And we're going to focus on this bit here. This is like the core carbon cycle, and the bits around it are kind of like how humans have used it. Okay, so we're just going to start by popping some arrows onto this diagram. So it's handy if you've got like 4 different colours and you're at home, so you're bound to have a few colours. Crucially, and the most important thing that people forget is there's only one way that carbon moves into this carbon cycle, and that's from the atmosphere into the producers like plants and algae. So that's our photosynthesis arrow. Carbon dioxide moves into plants or algae for use in photosynthesis. Next is respiration. Well, everything living carries out respiration, and therefore the plants and algae also release CO2 in respiration, as do animals, as do these things here called decomposers. They're like bacteria and fungi. They release CO2. So as we can see, where's my pointer gone? Here it is. Here's plants and algae. The arrows show what's eating what. So I've got a little kind of food chain here. So plants go to animals. These are our herbivores, or second trophic level. I could put more animals on, but it'd just get complicated. They then make something called detritus, which is just waste material. So it could be animal poo, a fallen leaf, a dead sheep. Anything dead or waste forms detritus. And then the detritus has got kind of like 4 pathways. It can be used as food by decomposers, like those bacteria feeding on cow poo, or we can form it into biofuels, or it can be kind of formed into fossil fuels and peat due to kind of like long processes that we'll go through later. So we've put on respiration. There's nothing else living here. Next one is anaerobic decay. So when there's no oxygen, you can end up making methane. So some decomposers, when there's no oxygen, will make methane, and that can come directly from the bacteria, or it can come from animals that have bacteria inside them. So it's not coming direct. The animals aren't really making methane. It is the bacteria inside the animals that is making methane. However, it's still classed as the animal. So things like termites, they make loads of methane because the wood is hard to digest. Therefore, they have bacteria in their stomachs to help digest the wood, but it becomes a bit anaerobic, and therefore loads of methane is produced. And then lastly, is just combustion. Again, it's moving away from biology, but we're going to look at human impact as well. So therefore, yeah, biofuels can produce CO2. Peat can be burnt or can kind of rot and give off CO2, and fossil fuels can obviously be burnt and give off CO2 as well. So it's not as if this CO2 is different to this CO2. It's just in the diagram, it avoids crossing over arrows. So you need a lovely diagram, a nice clear diagram. You use the lines in your page for methane, leave a space, put CO2, leave a couple of lines, then put those couple of lines. You try to spread it out nicely, try not to cross the lines, make it nice and clear. And on the form that you fill in, I'll give you a couple of questions about this, and then there's going to be some GCSE questions to have a go at as well. I think that's me done. It is. So take care of yourselves. I'm still thinking of a good sign-off thing to do that's not creepy. Like, who knows? Who knows? I'm giving up on that. Stop.